From high atop his secret broadcasting Shangri-La, overlooking New York, Miami, Austin, Seattle, and all points in between, this is America's #1 life coach, Darryl Mobley.
Hello, friends. You are listening to the Darryl Mobley Show, your life coach on the radio. The Darryl Mobley Show is the drama-free, success-focused excuses. They are not welcome. Forget the whining. Make progress. No negativity allowed. Work your plan. And zero, zilch, nada, psychobabble show. Here's why. So you can achieve your goals and live your best life. I'm Darryl Mobley, and I have been called son, brother, husband, dad, friend, Coach Mobley, and one of the best life coaches on the planet. Today, right here, right now, Coach Mobley is all yours. Let's get started.
Often blunt.
Go on.
Sometimes scary.
Go on.
And always on your side.
I'm a pretty big guy, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how much fun we can have together.
Darryl Mobley is your life coach on the radio.
The need for time management is real. How do I know this? Well, that's what today's guest is all about. It is my pleasure to have a sit-down conversation with Max Zieky. Max is a graduate of the University of Connecticut, where he was captain of UConn's NCAA champion soccer team. Ever the athletic competitor, Max played soccer professionally for a while after graduating from UConn. It was then that Max decided to focus his competitive spirit into the world of big business. He joined Dell Technologies, and that's when I met him. I was out at the park throwing a football with my then very young son. Max stepped over and began catching and throwing the ball with us. Then he began to encourage my son and tell him how talented he was at throwing the football. As you can imagine, those positive words made a big impression on my son and remain something my son remembers fondly to this day. That's when Max and I struck up a friendship. As I said, Max likes to compete, and compete he has. Max has progressed through a number of positions of increasing responsibilities while at Dell. He is now Vice President, Software Procurement at Dell Technologies, Global Operations. Max is a board member with Partnership for Children, an organization that supports abused and neglected children in the care of Child Protective Services. And he's a board member with Thinkery, an organization that creates innovative learning experiences that equip and inspire the next generation of creative problem solvers. Over this time, and I have observed this in him, perhaps the biggest change agent in Max's life has been the birth of his 2 children. And it is this delicious gumbo mix, that of his children, his marriage, and his work, that bring us to today's topic, time management. Lean forward. Take notes. Let's go.
All right, Max, here's my first question. What were the most formative experiences of your life before you left college?
I definitely have to associate to my household, my upbringing, my parents, and having 2 competitive siblings. That being that sports were definitely a formative life. I'd say it even further than experience. It was a 3-year-old on atmosphere with all 3 of us playing competitive sports. And so that really shaped my personality, my competitiveness prior to college, and then obviously it transferred into collegiate sports. But the other thing I would say was the passing of my grandmother from cancer. I think those type of personal experiences, one, especially for me, put a little things in perspective that I hadn't experienced until my grandmother passed. So between sports and family loss, those two things I'd say were definitely formative experiences.
You know, that's interesting. You know, one of the interesting things about sports, of course, is that you win, you lose, and you keep moving forward. Do you think that had any impact on the way you responded to, your grandmother passing? Was there a period where you had to get with it and deal with it and figure out a way to move forward, or how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I think at the time I didn't recognize the correlation because it's such new, raw emotion. But, you know, the grieving or the internalization of a loss, whether that's associated to human loss or sports loss, true competitors losing at any level, you really, really take it hard. You internalize every play, every touch, and granted, I won't ever correlate it to an exact loss of life or a family member, but what I didn't recognize is similar requirements that I used in a loss, i.e. watching film or looking back and thinking back to get past that, to refocus energy on the next so-called game. I had to go through a longer period to recognize that was the same thing I had to do to accept the loss. You never can get answers on why. And I'll tell you, that really fed, about 6 years ago when my mom passed pretty abruptly from being perfect bill of health to losing the battle of cancer, or I should say winning and becoming an angel for our family. Those experiences over your life, every time you're growing from it, right? And I think that's a big thing with sports. Every loss, as hard as it is actually moving you forward because you just learned how to get better. And I think life has, and the career has a lot of similarities. Every fall down, every failure, every loss, if you spend the time and you're mindful and you sit in that experience, no different than watching film of a loss, you learn. And that provides a path forward. And so I think those things definitely have shaped my career in life to this point.
Well, now, of course, I know that you experienced a whole lot of success in sports in college, and I want to touch on that because I do think it's certainly in the groundwork for our conversation today. So you were a national champion, am I correct?
Yes, in 2000, you are correct.
Okay. And talk to me a little bit about how you experienced that championship as you led up to it and as in the years since. I mean, now you're not, let's put it this way, you're not 22 years old anymore, right? So
I wish some days.
Right?
I wish some days.
Exactly. So can you talk about, because I want to make sure that we understand you, who you are, who you were, so we can understand kind of where you stand today. So tell me a little bit about that experience in college, sport, where you were, blah, blah, blah.
I think when anyone reflects back, you look back on the journey, and the journey starts at 3, 4, 5 years old. And what I learned was I'm actually not that good at soccer. And I had this discussion when I got inducted into the Connecticut Soccer Hall of Fame.
Congratulations.
I really am not. Thank you. I'm really not that good. But what I am at the actual individual sport, but what I am is I'm as competitive as they come. And so when I look back and it's relevant to today, there's no substitute for hard work. There's no substitute for guts and grit in anything we do. You want to get good at anything, it doesn't matter if it's a profession, a skill, a sport. There's absolutely no substitute for hard work, sweat, tears, blood. And that's what I am. I'm a competitor. It doesn't matter if you talk in the business world or, as you know, when we first met on the blacktop in the neighborhood, I compete. Now, the other piece that I learned over the years, and it's very prevalent right now in the company I work for. I've always been able to compete and get on teams or be part of organizations with people that are better than me. I surround myself or get on teams with better talent, which ultimately is going to force me to become better every single day because I'm surrounded with better talent. And I think about growing up in sports. I think about getting to the University of Connecticut where I played soccer. I had 11 countries represented on my team freshman year, which I'll tell you, demographically, when you look back 20 years, fundamentally different look and feel to a Division I men's soccer program. And I give the testament to Ray Reed, who's the coach still there today. He wanted the best. He didn't care about background, experience, color, didn't matter. You competed with the best talent around the world every single day. And just because you were a starter one week didn't give you the right that you were going to start the following week. And I think about those teachings and learnings about every day you have to show up and demonstrate your skill and execute. And I think about that really every day in the business world. Just because I was successful last year or last week doesn't mean I don't have to prove myself again today and tomorrow. Because at any given point, someone wants my job. And I love that. That's the atmosphere that I can thrive in. And so it boils down to just competitiveness, gut, grit, and then surrounding and getting on teams that have better talent than me. That's kind of how I've looked on the sports career. And I think about my last 18 and a half years at Dell Technologies. That's what's kind of been my secret in the sauce.
Hello, friend. I want to invite you to get a free subscription to my Live Your Best Life newsletter. It's fast and easy to do. Just go to CoachMobley.com. Click on the button you see there, fill out the little form, and you're in. Thanks.
And if I may add, perhaps you also applied that secret to the sauce in who you married and the 2 kids you have. Just want to throw that in there.
100%. Absolutely, right? The formula doesn't change, right? It just continues to rinse and repeat. You're absolutely right.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that foundation. Now, let me ask you, what are the fears that you deal with as you try to take your career to the next level? So, what things, you've been in the company, you said 18 years, moving up, increasing responsibility, managing people, clients all over the place. What is it that you think for you causes you fear? You fear as you try to move forward.
Darryl, it's a really good question, and I would have answered it relatively differently 6 years ago. And this, again, it goes back to my mother abruptly losing her battle with cancer. Mm-hmm. And the fear was, as you scale, do you lose sight of what you truly value in life? And for me, it's always been about family. Mm-hmm. And you can easily get caught up in the speed, in the competitive, scaling aspects of executives at large companies. Because when your scope expands, usually means you're traveling more. Doesn't matter what business function you lead or represent. It tends to come with all that, which I break down into 2 key themes that I've really honed in on over the years, and especially since the passing of my mother, was time. So the fear became, what am I doing with my time? Mm-hmm. And time broken down 2 different ways is time invested means everything. And the second one is technique ignites maximum effectiveness. And so what I quickly learned with my mom passing is, you got to really take a time out because you think you're running a 100-year lifespan and you got all the time in the world. Well, the reality is none of us know our clock. And so when I thought about how much time and energy, because I'm a competitive person, I was putting into my work, did I ever take stock of at what cost? Because the reality is there's only so much time in a day that you can allocate to everyone in your life and everything that you need to get accomplished. And so I sat down, and I've been using this formula ever since, which I have 2 slides. I'm not a big PowerPoint guy, but I have 2 slides.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one says, what is my value equation? What do I value in my life? And I take it out every year with the family. I also take it out every time a potential job opportunity presents itself. And the value equation, I never believe can have more than 5 true data attributes, because then you dilute any one measurement that really doesn't sway a decision-making criteria if it gets lower than 20% weighting.
Mm-hmm.
And at the center, Darryl, of the equation is my family and my health. Okay. Those 2 things you can quickly sacrifice as you scale up in careers. And I believe that whether it's a large company or other. And to each its own. I think people just have to accept what their value equation is. Their value equation is the career title and the money. I'm not here to judge. That's individual plans. Mine is the family, especially with a young family, but it'll always be about people more than a paycheck. And so, but the value equation allowed me to take the emotion out of decision making, which sometimes can happen whether you didn't get the promotion, whether something happened from a macroeconomic perspective. And so if it doesn't get past the nucleus, meaning the family impact, then it doesn't go on to the other 4 additional data attributes, which can I make an impact? What's my W-2 and financial planning? Can I beat it? You know, that's just a self-competitive thing. What's the skill I'm going to learn? And then what is the organizational diversity and equality? Do they believe in it? Because not all subcultures are created equal within large companies. Those things matter to me. Once I get through that, then I know I'm in control of, for more than not, how I'm spending and allocating my time. And so I would say fear of not recognizing I'm spending enough time in the things that I would value in my life at that point prior to my mother passing. But that immediate heart, gut, mind hit after I went through the grieving period really allowed me to assess there's positive meaning in everything, even in some of the darkest stuff, if you spend enough time trying to seek it out. And so that taught me there's always going to be enough work tomorrow. All of us could work 24/7, 365, especially in this new, call it work from everywhere all the time pandemic universe. And it's only going to exponentially push in that direction now that we've all formed these new habits. And so we got to be the owner and responsible of where and how we spend time within reason. My name is not on the building. I don't own and run my own company. So that comes with a relative, I have a job to do. It's not like I can just spend 100% of the time with the family, even though I would love to do that. Got to pay the bills.
Right.
But I really use that value equation to minimize fear of being pushed to everyone else's agenda and not controlling enough of my daily routine. And then the final thing to remove more of the fear, I'm not perfect, but to remove more of the fear, I schedule just about everything on the calendar Monday through Sunday. Because quickly, if you don't, everyone else can take the time. And if they're taking the time, I will guarantee you're not driving your value equation with your activity. And that will soon lead to resentment and disgust and anger because you're not in control of time. And so with time invested meaning everything, you and I agreed to spend time right now. That's time away from other things, but you and I both agreed for this hour, it's worth our time. We're investing it with each other. That matters to me. That's a big decision-making statement in sales as well. Customer is going to dedicate time. We both better be bringing value to the table. Otherwise, we wasted it, and you never get that back. And then the technique, igniting maximum effectiveness, you think about all the tools, email, Zoom, phone calls, text messaging. What I don't see enough mindfulness around is which tool should be used for the best outcome. And so there's a lot of inefficiencies when people say, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. Two things come to mind is they're not in control of their time and they're using the wrong techniques. And that goes from the personal to the, executive corporate life. And I'm not perfect. I measure this every single day, every single week, and I look at it and I adjust. I look at it and I adjust. And so I do believe over the last 5 years, I would say, the fear used to be there where as you scale, are you going down the path of divorce? What's going to fall off because you can't be everything to everybody? And that's really subsided now to no longer being fearful because I have a framework. I have discipline in it. I have a plan. Not every day is perfect, but more days are better than the others. And that's what I kind of look at. If we go back to a sports analogy, it's a winning season, right? You're going to have bad games. You may even have a bad season, but in the grand scheme of going after the championship, which the career and life, I'll say journey is long, again, not knowing anyone's specific clock time, but you're going to be more successful in both than not.
You know, you said something there that I found, among many things that I found fascinating, but one thing that jumps out at me, I'm trying to imagine how we would all operate if we, in games, in life, if you never knew when the ref would say, that's it, game over. You know, how would you play a game if you knew it could last for a minute, it could last for 50 minutes, it could last for 200 minutes. I don't know when they're going to raise their hand with the whistle, blow it, and be done with it. So I've got to I'm assuming what would happen is we'd be all about making the most of every single moment, which sounds like what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's a thing with sports, as you know, it's a mental toughness. It's a mental mindset, being in the zone. The only thing you're focused on is the next touch of the ball, the next play. You don't think about the play that just happened. You don't think about anything other than the next play and making the best judgment and activity. And that doesn't mean you don't plan ahead. That doesn't mean you don't look at the season. That doesn't mean you don't look at your life or plan for vacations and those things. That's not my point. But in the grand scheme to what you're talking about around focusing the mental mindset around the specific next action and feeling like you have a decision-making criteria to it, it's a profound change that I realized in myself because I'm a high-octane, go fast, run hard. I had to learn how to say no because I like to say yes in a lot of different areas. But what you do is if you're not being mindful enough of where you're spending time, you quickly dilute. And what happens? The quality goes out the door. Because in both, I believe in both life and in career, depending on what your objectives are in both, you have to be able to match quantity with quality. If you're only doing quality, eventually as you scale in work, that's going to take a massive hit, and you're eventually going to be career limiting if your quality doesn't match quantity. Now, in the reverse, if you can only do quality, but it's at such a minute level, you're also going to have a problem because as you scale, you got to be able to surround yourself with the A team because you can't do everything yourself. You got to be able to delegate and hold others accountable to scalable growth. And so those are things that I continue to learn every day how to do better by, mistake making.
Hello, friend. I want to invite you to get a free subscription to my Live Your Best Life newsletter. It's fast and easy to do. Just go to CoachMobley.com. Click on the button you see there, fill out the little form, and you're in. Thanks.
I've got to make sure I wrap my arms around your value equation. So your belief is that there should be no more than 5 things on the what do I value equation thing you have. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I say it's at least once a year you take out and assess because look, the reality, just as I mentioned, my mother, big life things can happen. No one goes through life gate free, right? Or career potential setbacks happen. And so we take it out. Maybe today you didn't have to take care of an elder, but tomorrow the elder just moved into your home. Well, that's a fundamental game changer that you may not have had in your value equation that isn't there now, and it's going to allocate time to. And so I take it out once a year at a minimum, and then again, any type of life or career change or opportunity, we now as a family assess that. Is it time to go do something different? But we make it as a family decision. It's no longer just a max siloed decision because it impacts us all.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Okay. What are your weaknesses?
Asking for help. I think part of when we think about athletes in general, or I would even maybe correlate to military, asking for help growing up, at least in our household, was more seen as a weakness. And I think sometimes you get hardwired a certain way, and asking for help actually as things scale, especially as both family, work, both scale, you can't do it alone. And so part of that weakness I've been working on for the last 3 years, child 1 was a game changer, becoming a father and a parent. Child 2, we thought the plan we had allocated out for time and balance and support for child 1 we could use the same plan as child 2 came. That quickly got thrown out and we had to readjust. And
right,
so,
right.
I think that when you look at, I'm big kind of into the Enneagram methodology, and when you look at Enneagram numbers, and I'm a number 8, you can tend to do everything for everybody, not ask for help, say yes to too many things at the detriment of your own health. And I can easily see how I've done a little bit of that roller coaster activity, especially over the last 5 years with, my son being 7 now, my daughter being 5. And so I'm slowly learning where to say no, how to ask for help sooner rather than later, because part of that also is you got to be able to ask at the right timing. And I'll say this more in a corporate aspect, but I'll correlate it to the personal life. Corporate is, if you wait till the 12th hour to ask for help, you're really setting the person up for failure that you're asking for help because you didn't give any runway for he or she to help you appropriately. And in the personal life, I'm sure maybe certain parents can relate. If you're not really speaking transparently with your spouse or your kids on things that aren't working, and you just let things fester and fester, eventually you have the blow-up fight. And so part of that weakness is not letting things sit for too long and thinking you can solve every problem, because my innate competitiveness thinks I can solve anything. And so your strengths can tend to quickly become your weaknesses if you don't watch over-indexing on any one of them.
True. Now, you have touched on weaknesses and then strengths and getting your head wrapped around them. Are there any areas that were once weaknesses that you can look at now, and this could be professional, in your professional life, any areas that were once weaknesses that are now maybe their strengths?
Time management, for sure. When I look at growing up, whether it's sports, whether it's school, I was not someone that liked to put things on calendars, but also I didn't really have to. If you think about sports, for the most part, the coaches, the teams, they're setting your schedule for you.
Right.
My parents set our relative breakfast, lunch, and dinner time. And so I was working in someone else's operational framework, so I never really had to think or hone in on a skill like time management. And my personality is one that I like less things that are scheduled. I like to go on road trips and get lost and explore and meet new people. And so part of that is just understanding your own individual wiring, but then recognizing, which I had to do because there was an absolute apparent weakness. As soon as I got married, child 1, child 2, and work started to scale, I don't care who you are, and people can have photographic memories and those things, which will help. I'm not one of those. Without effective time management, scaling will eventually crush you. And it'll either crush you in both your personal or work or one or the other. If you're not, I go back to that time invested means everything, and the technique ignites maximum effectiveness. Those two themes, without time management and scheduling and having true discipline and structure, you will fail. I don't care who you are. And so I learned some of that the hard way by thinking I could still run hard, run fast, get it done last minute. And early on, you can get away with some of that stuff. But when the stakes get higher, especially in corporate executive worlds, that is never going to be the answer, and nor will it be tolerated, because your quality of work is not at the level that the company requires in your role and responsibilities. And so time management, for sure, is something that was a growing, glaring weakness, but quickly rectified itself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting in the seat at the company I am today. And, you know, hopefully I say that the marriage is still extremely strong. I don't know that that would have been the case, because someone's going to feel the lack of focus or energy or perceived love because your time management is horrible. And so I'd say that would be the biggest one. There's others, but I would say that one.
That's huge, and especially when you add it to kind of your initial piece you took me through, and I do find it fascinating about your value equation, that you got to get right with your value equation, period. And putting family and health at the center of it is, in my opinion, is a great place to be. But you got to decide that. Then when you lay out how you spend your time, everything kind of flows back to, am I feeding the value equation elements, the 5 elements, or however many you have on it? It makes a lot of sense to me.
I agree, Darryl. And, you know, I sit down with a lot of our UR hire communities, our post-grad hires, right? These are early in career folks. And I walk them through this. And I tell them, because family and kids are not something that's in their mind at the moment. But I said, look, if I was talking to myself back when I was 22, 23, when I entered Dell, my value equation at that point would be a $ in the nucleus. I wouldn't have a whole lot else out there. And that's okay, right? That's okay. But to your point, that centers the individual, how he or she is driving day after day. And what I found profoundly for me was there's unbelievable happiness and focus when you do that. And so all these things that we're facing right now that are very challenging, I'm still very centered every day because I'm focused on my value equation. Because God Almighty, if tomorrow's my day and my number's called, I don't have regrets, because the way I have spent my time since creating this formula, I can hang my hat on and feel very good that I put more of the energy and time into the things that matter most to me in life. And I'll be honest, I think about, especially since my mom passed, I think about the whole deathbed experience. On my deathbed, when I look back, or when people talk, what do I want to hear and what do I want to say? And am I living that? And I'll tell you, I've never heard, I wish I made more money, I wish I traveled for my work more. You tend to not have those. Maybe some people do, but you just tend to not. And so when I think about the value equation and the purpose I'm living every day, knowing I'm equally as competitive I was when I was an athlete or a single guy, that is in my blood. But it's with a relative understanding of my current world. And I'll give you this final example on this. It pains me, and this was before the pandemic, that I would get to the office later than my boss. That was never something I did. I always beat everyone to the office. I always left the office last. That's just competitive. It's no different than being in the gym and working on your trade. You get there before everybody, you leave, right? But what I had to quickly learn is, you know what? Being able to cook my young kids breakfast and see my wife for that half an hour versus being in the half an hour earlier in the office absolutely does nothing being in the office a half an hour earlier. It really doesn't.
Right.
But the value I get and those moments I get that I can never put a price tag on over the last 7 years means everything. And I go back to that value equation. So you also have to learn. I'll never be fully comfortable with not beating my boss to the office, although today it's the virtual office, right?
Right.
But some of those things you never have to be comfortable with. You just have to accept, because you're driving towards the things that you value in your equation. And that's where I center my ability to accept things that I may just never be fully comfortable with. And it's okay.
That is one of the best recitations of how you deal with being who you are that I've ever heard. That you don't deny that reality about you, but again, you have your value equation. You know what's important to you, and that drives you. That's what drives it. That's in basketball, I might want to shoot threes all day long. Before they were threes, I played, but I might want to shoot threes all day long. But if that doesn't fit into what we need to do to win, it's key. And of course, right. the key is deciding who the we is. If the we is your family, your wife, your kids, the we is your health, then you say, wait, what do we need to do to win? And then everything flows.
Exactly.
From that. And that's very, very strong. Very strong. Well, that leads me to this question. True or false? Being a corporate executive is more difficult when you are married with kids.
False.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say this, everybody has a personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And any one of us, I don't want to call being married and kids an excuse, but we can all have things in our life that could be the challenge answer of why we're not as successful as we think we should be or could be. We don't know what's happening in everybody's personal life, whether look, my brother is single, not married.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it's about difficulty in having kids or marriage. I think it boils back down to how you're driving your value equation, where you're spending time. Because if it's not married or kids, it's some other thing that's on your plate that you could easily answer the question as true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying that I didn't go through the transformational journey and fell down multiple times when I first became a father with child 1 and then child 2. Absolutely. I could have easily, and I probably even did, if you ask my wife, she might even said I might have blamed some of my execution at work because of kids this, kids that, right? I mean,
right.
It's easy to associate that it is more challenging. I can really see that is an easy route to being true. But if I really challenge myself, it's not about that, because it's about time management and effective focus and energy. And here's another example I give.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I really challenge myself on my bad days, did I eat right? Did I have a bad day? Oh, I did. You know what? I didn't eat that well last night. Guess what? A little sluggish this morning. Did I get up a half an hour later? Yep. All of those domino effects start to creep into quality of driving your value equation, quality of driving your work. And I'm not perfect. I like to have a good time. I like to go to a party. I like to cheat on the diet. But what I'll tell you is, if you're providing your body with the right nutrition to deliver the best energy based off your blood type, your wiring, are you a morning person, a late person? Where do you do your best strategic work? Like, you really have to spend a lot of time with yourself. This is my favorite quote. You got to spend time thinking about thinking. And I know that's an interesting comment, but if you think about social media, everything's in your face. Everything needs to be instant. You quickly can blink, and I think you called this out earlier in our conversation around, you blink and a year's gone by, 2 years has gone by, 6 years has gone by.
Right.
That's the pace the world's on, and I'm not saying it's a good or bad pace. I'm not here to debate that. I'm in the technology sector, so speed tends to be a benefit, but you really have to sit down and carefully watch where and how you utilize time. And if you do that, regardless if you're married, 1 kid, 2 kid, 5 kid, whether you need to move, what you tend to find is you can manage all of those different phases with relative success. And I say relative success. No one is perfect out there, and if anybody does, you could just tell them they're full of it.
You're right.
Including me, right? So that's why I say it's false.
Actually, I agree with you. Now, you may have covered it already, but just in case, I want to ask you, what has life taught you so far? You've got a long runway left, but as you stand today, you can say, here's what life has taught me.
I would say life has taught me definitely treat others how you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And that can be a profound statement in a large corporate world sometimes. Politics and all these other things can be real. I will never play those because that's never how I'd want to be treated. So treat others how you want to be treated. This has really, I would say, changed profoundly for me from a true competitive person to, with my mom passing, being a more empathetic person. You can't always just judge a book by its cover. Athletes, at least, in my collegiate days, you tend to look across the field. You size up players just by how they look. Mm-hmm. You got your scouting reports, you got everything else, but you, when you play enough and you kind of see certain players, you kind of size them up. Well, that's a really wrong mentality to think about, and it's especially wrong in the corporate world because you don't know what he or she's going through on that given day, mm-hmm. right? And so I think that has also taught me just to be a bit more empathetic. You can have the same competitive spirit, but it's just a little bit of a different approach to it. And then the final thing that I do associate a lot of these life-changing lessons with the profound experience in my mom passing is you got to really relax on the stress and anxiety. 300 years from now, hopefully our family members and generations remember us, but the real profound change in the world, not going to be that big or that bad. And so mm-hmm. I've used this other formula with especially our earlier in career folks coming up in what can sometimes feel like a stressful environment in a large corporate, which is 3-3-3. Mm. And this is what life has taught me as well. If you make a mistake, whether that's in your personal life, your marriage, I know I've made mistakes with the kids. What's the impact? Is anybody going to remember in 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years? 3 weeks mistake, let it go. Don't lose any sleep over it. A mistake that, you're going to remember in 3 months, take an extra second, learn, take a little extra stock. Why did it happen? Make sure it doesn't happen again. But again, move on and continue to make those mistakes because mistake making means growth. Growth as a father, growth as a husband, growth as a professional, growth as a human being. Keep working and don't overthink. A 3-year mistake in all of that I just mentioned, you really got to go into the locker room, take out the chalk, watch film over and over and over and over again and make sure those type of profound mistakes, hopefully they don't happen. Hopefully they don't happen too often in the career or life. But you really got to take stock so you ensure it never happens again. So that has also allowed me to manage stress and anxiety to a relativity. Because if you don't think about it in that terms, every PowerPoint slide, every meeting, every mistake, you can see the anxiety on the people's right. faces, especially our young population. It's not right. healthy. And guess what? At the end of the day, when did you see a PowerPoint change the world? I get it. It's a necessary evil. Right. But it's amazing how quickly, especially up-and-coming folks in their career can put on that, and it's just completely false, completely unhealthy. And so I'd say that would be the other thing. The 3-3-3 has served me well across the scaling of both life and work.
So wait, let me make sure I get clear. So you're saying that as you face things, so before it happens, before you do it, you say, okay, is what I'm going to do where is it on the 3 scale? If what I do, the results are, okay, 3 weeks, whatever, 3 months, okay, tweak it, 3 years, step back, revise, retool, re-recruit, whatever. Is that what you're saying? Is something we do beforehand, or is that after the fact?
It's a both. It's a formula for both. So the before is, all right, if I'm sending an email, who am I sending it to and what's the context and objective? And if it's to a senior executive group that can have hundreds of millions of dollars of swing mm-hmm. and you get it wrong, you better hit, not that you do that in email anyways, but you hit the proverbial pause button. So that's the before. You got to use judgment and assessment If you get it wrong, you just have to put your mindset that you're going to lose. If I lose whatever activity I'm about to do, does it matter in 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years? And it's a simple barometer to say, ooh, this is definitely going to have a 3-year because we may not launch a product that's detrimental or critical to our future growth. All right, I better hit the pause button. I better pull in more people. I better get other perspectives. But if it's something simple, just go do it. And if you make a mistake, who cares? It's 3 weeks, go learn. And that's how you got to be able to balance speed and agility with quantity and quality. Because if you don't, and everything you do feels like a 3-year impact, you will drive yourself nuts and your productivity will be terrible. And so it is a before and after. It's no different when you fall down. Yep. Mistake making, I always say, is great. Same thing, like I'll give you a prime example. There's certain sports in college, collegiate Division I, going after a national champion. I'm captain of the team, and in a game, I went up for a head ball to clear it I was a defensive player, and I knew what I was doing. I used my hand. Well, the ref saw it, and it was a penalty kick. Mm-hmm. That is just, I'm better than that. That's idiotic. I lost my mind there for a minute. But the competitive spirit says, I don't want that person to even touch the ball. So it went past my head. I used my hand. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll tell you, that wasn't a 3-week mistake. That was almost a season mistake based off where we were ranking and that we lost the game. And so that example sticks with me, that you can't do those type of mistakes. And when you get to certain levels, there isn't forgiveness for 3-year mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so the judgment has to get that kind of tick, that voice in your head. I didn't have a formula like 3-3-3 that was in my brain. I would just execute, and the aftermath would be, hey, this is really poorly done. Because I wasn't even thinking, I was just doing. Now, that 3-3-3 I use on a daily basis.
Wow. That is, and of course, like all great athletes, flashing back to that mistake when you were younger.
Exactly, right? It never leaves us. It never leaves us.
It never leaves. I tell my kids, I can remember every shot I should have made that I missed. I can remember.
Exactly.
I can remember. I can
exactly.
Say, oh my God. Oh, but other stuff. They told me one time. They said, "Dad, you never talk about your wins." I said, "Yeah. I mean, I had them." I said, "But boy, the things I learned from were the ones where I did, like you just said. I learned from those things. Yep. You win, you move on. It's good to win, but you can learn from the mistakes, the errors, the hand-on balls. You can learn from that." So now, what I love about chatting with you, and I always have, what I love about it is that you, as you say, you've given yourself time to think about these things just in life, and I love that. So now, think about the world before you enter the corporate world. So you're in college, you got out of college, you get the job. Is there one big thing that you did not know before you entered the corporate world that you wish you had known?
I would revert back again to having for better use of terms again, a value equation at any age. Mm-hmm. Right? I never thought about what is my life goals, and sometimes that can be hard as a younger person, because sometimes it's the experience in which we go through that start to form our wants in life as we go through those different experiences. But I really believe this value equation would be, and it's something I talk to all, I still do a lot of university engagements with mm-hmm. students coming out, because it's never too early to start thinking about what do you want in life that year. And that may change if you're going on spring break or not. That may change. You want more time to your fitness and nutrition. You don't recognize that that's not always going to be that easy, right? Because your responsibilities mm-hmm. tend to be less during those formative years. And so I think the whole value equation, and then ultimately honing in on what time management structure means for that individual, because we're all different. in how we think and how we would execute that. And that's what I love about humans. We need to be all different for a reason. That's why we're all placed here. That's why I tell people when they're coming into a large corporate environment, the only thing you ever need to do is be able to bring your true, genuine self to this place.
See,
you will learn, you will grow, you will tweak. It is, because that's
so true.
Where full growth comes from.
That's right.
If we start to get everybody looking and feeling and talking the same way because they feel pressured that you got to form into some type of corporate structure, we will lose. You might as well just close the doors there. You need all of the minds and the value and the backgrounds and the experience and the different upbringings around the world. And so people have to bring their true self. And so I would say that would be the other thing that I think about coming out of college is time management, really continue to be your true self. And those things will always carry you to a successful place. It may not be that that's the company you entered into, because I always believe if you drive your true genuineness, if you do more of what makes you truly happy throughout the day, and that means the type of role, the type of day-to-day job, if you follow that and you don't chase the title and money, I've learned that the title and money follow much faster because your quality of work's better. You're going to be proactive. You're going to be more self-motivated because you're doing work you really care about. And so that's kind of how I've tried to figure out roles that I want to go take throughout my career. There's been roles over the last 5 years that have come knocking from my executive team that they wanted me to go lead, which would have been on paper, bigger roles, bigger titles, bigger money. I said no. One, because it didn't fit my value equation at the time, and two, didn't drive my energy level the way it needs to. I know what drives me, and that's people, and that's competitiveness. And not all roles are created equal that way, and that's okay.
So wait a minute. So if I took what you just said and said that boil that piece down, you say, don't chase the money, chase the work and the roles, and the money will follow or will come more quickly. Is that part of what you
agree.
Said?
Fundamentally agree. 100%. 100%.
Okay.
Even if those two things don't, I believe your satisfaction will always be higher. A paycheck, a promotion, a title tends to be kind of like a sugary dessert. It's nice in that moment. It feels good. We all like to have it from time to time. But if you're not satisfied with what you're doing, that quick satisfaction from the promotion of the title quickly subsides to a job that you hate waking up every day to go do.
Right.
And eventually, I believe that becomes the demise, and you either get fired or other. And so, again, to each its own on their own personal objectives and career, and if money and title is it, I'm not here to, that's the individual's personal plan, and I'm not here to judge. But for me, it's got to be more about that happiness and energy level. When I speak to people every single week at work, I mentor a lot of folks sit down career-wise, and it sounds hoaxy in a large corporate space, but I said, well, what really gets you happy? What gets your energy level up? What gets it down? Because you need to know what the opposite is too.
Right.
If you told me I was going to be back office doing Excel spreadsheet work and you were going to pay me $10 million to do it, I'm telling you right now, I may sound crazy on this podcast, I would not do it. I would not take it. I would hate it. I would hate every day waking up, which then my mind is not right. I'm going to be a bad father. I'm going to be a bad husband because they're going to feel the aftermath of me being disgruntled in what I'm doing every day. And I can't put a price tag on that. For me personally, I just won't.
Well, I tell you, you're right. I have, as a coach, an executive coach and a life coach, I have engaged with a lot of people who absolutely hate what they do, and they get paid a lot of money, and they hate it. Every day is a struggle. Their mind, as you say, their mind is not right. Their family life is not right. They wish they were doing other things. All these things because they never. And it gets back to something you mentioned before, and that is that they were never authentically themselves. So because of that, it all just went crazy. Everything goes crazy at all. The divorces and kids and everything. And so you're right. You say, who am I to judge? I'm not here to judge. I can tell you being asked to help people that, the $10 million, obviously a lot of money, the example you used. But boy, it does not buy peace of mind, doesn't buy family happiness, doesn't buy personal happiness, feeling good about yourself, and doesn't buy love for the job, which is amazing.
Well, and I remember our early on conversations, you were high rising in your company, and if I remember correctly, keep me honest, but you made the choice to go spend time with your father, and then that spawned off into your profound career now. That's based off your self-interest and the things that drive your energy. But you made that conscious choice as well as you were scaling very high in your company. And
yeah.
Why'd you do that, right? I think for very similar reasons.
No, you're right. You are right, and you're right. Made the decision. Have loved it. It's interesting. I had a friend of mine who I worked with many years ago, back when I started in corporate world, and he is still in the corporate world and doing his thing, and he's at whatever the level you need to be at this time, which is great. And he said to me, I need to find something that I love to do before I retire, right? And so I made some comment back. We were texting each other, and he says, I just said something about, yeah, that sounds good, whatever, something like that. And he sent his message back to me was, but you love what you do. And he was right. And all I could answer him, because I said, how do I answer? I said, I'd better. That was my answer. That was it. I'd better, and I didn't explain it. But, as you said, you get one life. You don't know when the whistle blows. And, I just want to, being on that deathbed thing, that is a constant with me too. I want to make sure that when it happens, I can, no regrets, no halfways, and I just think that's lost. The money is great, but I do think you're right. If you don't focus on the money, you don't chase it. Rather, if you don't chase the money and all that kind of stuff, but you chase the work that fulfills you, I think if you're in the right industry, the money will come, and it will come bigger and faster, and in more health than it ever could before. So there's that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the business stuff. What about personally? So how about things, if there were things or a big thing you did not know before you became a father that you wished you had known?
Probably going to need another 10 years of me being a father to actually be able to answer that, because I'm still trying to get it right. I do believe, and people say it, the minute you hold your first child in your hand, it's an absolute life-changing experience. And I can tell you, both Corey and I, we went through that exact thing, and you quickly realize how all of your time and energy and attention and focus is now on bringing up great human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't think about how big of a mind and time shift it was going to take hold of my entire thought being. It sounds odd to say that, because parenting is, the kids absolutely need you to live,
mm-hmm.
but also how much I've just absolutely enjoyed, even on the hardest days, all that it's come with.
And you're right. It expands. You think you spend a lot of time with them, and you have to change their diapers and give them food, and then they grow. And as you said, yours are now 7 and 5. You said, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
7 and 5. And I tell you this, and for everybody out there listening, the years go by in a snap, and the little take pictures. I always say take pictures because eventually they'll be taller, faster, quicker, whatever. And you'll look at them, and you'll remember as you go through those stages. You'll remember when you held them, and you'll remember when you had to show them how to hold a ball, or how to write, or how to read. And now you watch them, and you feel, say, I did a pretty good job. Here they are. They're ready to go. A mind and a time shift. Was there anything in your mind that you had to relieve yourself of when the kids came along?
I still probably struggle with a little bit of it today. I don't have a lot of tolerance for whining, and that's actually more when you talk about babies and young kids, and right. And so I think it kind of talks through some of the things I've called out about just being a more empathetic,
mm-hmm.
understanding type individual, where that competitive wiring can be a challenge in just letting people also be, or even though sometimes as a parent you want them to make different choices or understand things differently, they're not us, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to be their own individual self. And I'd say I'm still growing through that. I wouldn't say I get the best scores, but that's one thing that I know I have to continue to work on.
They keep throwing you different plays at you. You know, they keep running different players on the field because 7-5
exactly.
now. Then it becomes 10-7, and their whole game changes. Then they're 15-12. You're like, what is going on here? Then
you're so right.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I did have a lot of, and the family probably says I still don't have that much of, although all the kids have definitely taught me is patience. I wouldn't give myself a passing grade yet, but I'll tell you over the last 7 years, I've had more growth in that area than the previous, 32.
I want to thank you so much for the time you've given me. I know, as you say, it's what's important to you. You gave me this time. I can tell the folks that, I knew you before they were kids. We met, as you said, way back on a basketball court, and I remember you treating my son and my oldest daughter very nicely, and they've never forgotten that these little things, they just stack up, man. You're stacking these chips up, and I really, really wish you continued success, continued happiness, continued love in the family. That time you give them is valuable, and it pays off in ways that, we'll probably never really know what it does. But I'm really happy for you, and I want to thank you so much for the time you've given me today.
My pleasure, Darryl, and same to you and your great family. And I'll tell you, I've always enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I'll tell you this. It has been a great, great time with Max. So here are some of the things we covered that I think you want to really dig in a little deeper on. We talked about guts and grit. We talked about knowing your own clock and how none of us really know it. We talked about maximum effectiveness. Max shared the notion of the value equation and how important it is to know what your value equation is. He also said this, and I think this is very important. Without effective time management, professional success will destroy you. I actually agree with him on that. And then he also shared something I found both humorous and useful, and that was his rule of 3-3-3 when it comes to making decisions and mistakes and taking action. It was a great time talking with him. Overall, this is something of a master class on time management and how you have to change how you think about time in order to get the most out of your time.
Friends, thank you for joining me on the Darryl Mobley Show, your life coach on the radio. Let's do it again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Remember this, my friends. In life, you don't get what's fair. You don't get what's good. You don't get what's nice. You don't get what you deserve. You don't get what you wish for. And you do not get what you need. In life, my friends, you get what you do. Period. Make the person in the mirror. That's you. Do the right things, and you will win at the game of life. One more thing. Your life will not get better by chance. Your life will get better by change. Believe, think, act, win, and say it with me, enjoy life. Hey, wife, I love you and the kids. See you soon. Bye-bye now.
They don't teach this stuff in school.
And who do you propose teach this class?
You're on the air with Darryl Mobley, your life coach on the radio.
Let's take a quick break. I want to invite you to get my Enjoy and Grow Rich audio program and guidebook. In the Enjoy and Grow Rich program, you'll learn the secrets that will bring you more success and happiness. There's a lot in this program. This brings together everything that I've learned that can help you become more successful. From this, you'll learn the mindset secrets of multimillionaire entrepreneurs and super achievers. You'll learn the 10 steps to turn your life around. You'll learn how to replace limiting core beliefs with empowering beliefs and actions. You'll learn why you must get clear on your life goals. You'll learn about the time wasters that, frankly, eat your life away. You'll learn how to determine whether or not you're in a relationship or a situation. You will learn how to develop a winner's attitude, the laws of success, how to get work-life balance, how millionaires and superachievers are different, how to make 6 figures in 1 month, how to build character in your kids, how to create your future, how to turn negative habits into positive habits, how to set and get goals, why you must embrace your greatness, and so much more. I want you to get this program. To get it, just go to enjoyandgrowrich.com. That's enjoyandgrowrich.com. And when you get to that page, make sure you read everything on there, because I want you to see everything you get in this program. This is a master program. And if you're ready for it, it's ready for you. Again, that's enjoyandgrowrich.com. Hello, friend. I want to invite you to get a free subscription to my Live Your Best Life newsletter. It's fast and easy to do. Just go to CoachMobley.com. Click on the button you see there, fill out the little form, and you're in. Thanks.